What's up, y'all? We had a nice little triple header for Showtime Championship Boxing. Let's start off from the beginning. We had Devin Alexander taking on Jesus Soto Karass. Now, we all know what's up with Soto Karass. He's a hard charging, tough, rugged fighter, not a lot of movement or whatever. Devin Alexander actually turned out to be the first of two guys tonight who actually probably made their fights a little bit more difficult than they had to. Devin Alexander decided to stand and slug with Soto Karass more so than dancing and using his speed, which would have probably made the fight, like I said, a lot easier and probably a little bit more boring, which is probably why he chose to stand and trade more, because it's been one of the knocks against Devin Alexander that his fights are boring. Well, this one was definitely not boring because he stood in and he banged with Soto Karass. He won the fight, certainly deserved to win it. Landed the more telling, damaging blows. Outlanded Soto Karass as well. It was a pretty impressive performance, but then again, it was against a guy who, for the most part, you had to think he was going to beat. Next up was the fight I was the most looking forward to: Gary-Russell Jr. taking over Lomachenko. Lomachenko's only had two professional fights. He started out, his pro debut, as well as his losing effort against Orlando Salido for the WBO championship. But Salido was overweight, so the title was only on the line for Lomachenko, and with Salido winning, it ended up vacating the title. Now, so instead of Lomachenko having to wait around to get another championship, strings were pulled and all kinds of stuff was going on, and Lomachenko turns around and gets another shot at the championship against the untested Gary Russell Jr. Gary Russell's 24-0, still has the fastest hands I've seen in boxing since Meldrick Taylor. I say that all over the place because the guy's hand speed is amazing. So I was looking forward to this. Two highly touted guys, 26 years old both, about to fight for a championship. I mean, that's pretty awesome. I'll tell you guys right now, I picked Gary Russell Jr. to win the fight, but I wasn't confident in the prediction. But I'll stand by my prediction. I picked him. In this fight, you could tell Lomachenko's amateur record was like 396-1, right? So ridiculous. Okay, you could tell from a skill level standpoint that Lomachenko he just had more in his toolbox from a skill level standpoint. Now, when I'm talking about skill, I'm talking about foot movement. I'm talking about layered attacks, like changing levels head to body, body to head, knowing, footwork, not necessarily raw stuff like speed and power. That's, you either have that or you don't. You can slightly improve or whatever. But just the skill of the sport, you could just tell Lomachenko was ahead of Russell, even though Russell was a little faster. What we saw the majority of this fight was Russell throwing a lot of punches. He threw more shots than Lomachenko, but he didn't land nearly as much. Now, I only had Lomachenko winning the fight by 2 points. Ultimately, it was a majority decision in favor of Lomachenko. One judge, Lisa Jampa, had it a draw, and the other two judges had, I believe, Lomachenko winning by 5 points, 4 or 5 points. I thought the 4 or 5 points might have been a little bit of a stretch, but you could definitely see because there was some tight rounds there. It was an entertaining fight, though. But speaking of entertaining fights, Robert the Ghost Guerrero returned after pretty much all but being shut out by Floyd Mayweather Jr. in May of 2013 to fight Yoshihiro Kamegai. Now, most people have probably never heard of Kamegai, but if you saw this fight, you'd probably be looking for him moving forward. I mentioned Devin Alexander was one guy who pretty much made his fight tougher than it needed to be. Robert Guerrero was the other. Now, I don't want to take anything away from Kamegai because he is a tough, rugged guy. I mean, he stood in there and, he took some major shots, gave some good ones too. But the guy has like almost no head movement. Doesn't have a lot of hand speed, doesn't have the greatest footwork, a lot of that. So Guerrero also is not, he's not Gary Russell Jr. in terms of speed or Floyd Mayweather, anybody like that. But I think he's quick enough to outbox Kamegai. He didn't choose to do that. He stood in a phone booth, and the result was a thrilling fight. I mean, these dudes were bombing each other. In the 6th round, Kamegai landed a nasty uppercut and two power shots after that with an uppercut. You can see it right there. Actually opened up a nasty gash over the left eye of Robert Guerrero. And almost immediately after the gash, the eye began to swell. I don't think Kamegai targeted the punch. I mean the cut as much as he probably should have, but you know, he made a good account of himself. Robert Guerrero won the fight by unanimous decision, but he took some punishment. Now, after this fight, in my opinion, he really didn't do much to raise his stock. He really didn't. I felt that, this guy, though he was courageous and tough and all of that sort of thing, if he was in the ring with a real legitimate threat at 147 pounds, an elite fighter, we don't even have to talk about like Floyd or Pacquiao or somebody like that. Let's talk about like Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, guys like that. Even Devin Alexander probably would have sliced and diced this guy up. Guerrero, by choosing to fight him the way he did, actually didn't really shine. The fight was great, but if you think about, when you start talking about wins and losses and stuff, I didn't think that he really, if you're just looking for a slugfest, then yes, you love this fight. But if you're evaluating the talent level and who can beat who later on and fighting against different styles, you can't really walk away from this blown away by Guerrero's performance. That's what I'm saying. I mean, from a purely cheap standpoint of just straight up slugfest violence or whatever, yes, it was a great fight. It was a great fight. But, I mean, look at his face. If you saw this fight or if you've seen Kamegai fight, could you imagine any elite welterweight taking that type of punishment from Kamegai? I couldn't. After the fight was over, Jim Gray of Showtime asked Robert Guerrero about possibly fighting Keith one-time Thurman. His response was kind of lame, actually. He was like, "Oh, Keith Urban? Yeah, I'm gonna go see him in concert." Yeah, ah ha ha ha. Supposed to be the play on the country music singer or whatever, but fact of the matter, you see the punch output, so we see what kind of fight this was. Fact of the matter is, if he fought someone like Keith Thurman, I think Guerrero might be in a little bit of trouble. But that was the night of Showtime fights. Y'all check me out for the recap next week. Probably got some boxing, but we also got UFC fight night. Peace.